Recording in progress. Hi, everybody. It's Claire Wasserman, founder of Ladies Get Paid. And I don't need to introduce myself anymore. I think, oh, Dora, first time here live. Well, welcome. Okay, let's go ahead and share my screen. Okay. Now, I noticed that last time when I recorded, I don't believe that it was full screen when I took a quick look. I mean, you could still see the slides. And by the way, everybody who's here live, but also not here live, I upload my presentation each time. Okay. So of course, encourage you to take notes, get the most out of this session. But if you feel like it's going fast, no worries. You're going to get this presentation. Okay. Tell your story. There we go. There's me. There's the schedule. It was Amy Fulbright noticed that I had not the wrong time, but I had messed up the time a little bit in today's session in Circle. I updated it, but you're here, so clearly we're okay. It's updated here on this slide. One thing I would love you to do is mark your calendar for the 11th. Okay, November 11th, because that's where I encourage you, based on this session and the edits that we do on our materials, if you could upload that to Circle by November 11th, and then comment on at least 2 other posts by the 14th. It doesn't have to be that you're necessarily giving feedback on somebody else's resume. It could be that you're maybe answering somebody's question. Either way, just something where nobody is left alone, and I will be going through as well. And I've also have asked some of my HR recruiter friends if they would take a look too. And you are all from vastly different industries. So that's, there's always things that we need to go into a little bit more detail. If you're maybe a creative and you have a portfolio, that's a whole other kind of class. But what you're going to learn today, it's universal. It's universal. So the overview of today is, of course, building a resume that gets you the interview. That's the goal. I mean, ultimately, of course, you want the job, but we're just trying to get past, I mentioned it before, the applicant tracking system. Then creating a compelling cover letter, optimizing your LinkedIn profile. And so, just to really quickly say this, it's about your structure, your wins, the impact of your wins, and then really how do we optimize all of it. I also am going to be sending around a bunch of links as I constructed my, things are being updated all the time. LinkedIn, they're changing the amount of characters that you can use. They're changing, what you call something. In your profile, it used to be called summary. Now it's called about. So I have a number of links of articles that can give you a little bit more insight beyond what I talk about today. So that's all going to go into Circle. You are your best advocate. Now own it. I think as women, and I am very curious if this sounds like you, so jump in the chat. I think as women, we are socialized, we are brought up to accommodate others. So what does that mean? It means that when we speak about ourselves, when we quote brag, is that going against how we've been socialized, right? No, you're just telling the truth. You're telling the truth about the service that you provided your company. This is a good thing. This helps other people. And then you're becoming more targeted and more specific in terms of its impact. But overall, this is not, we need to get rid of the word, I guess, self-promotional bragging, or use those words and own it. No more shame, no more embarrassment. Okay. This is your time. Nobody else will speak for you as best as you can speak for yourself, because you know yourself best. But you have to commit to that. This statistic hopefully doesn't scare you too much, but the average time that a recruiter spends going through resumes, it's about 6 seconds, right? But you're going to be fine. Let that be a challenge for you, an opportunity for you, not something to freak us out. And I would say just something to think about. It's really using numbers and being human at the same time. I'm going to show you what I mean in just a minute. I also have examples that I'm going to be showing you throughout the presentation, and I'll drop in the links as well. So I'm assuming everybody's in front of their computer, have their browser open, so you can click on the link and see it full screen. So the types of resumes, and you may know all of this already, by the way. I'm starting real 101 here, but there is no one right way to do a resume. Now, there are lots of wrong ways to do it. So I would say pick one of these. You can either do chronological, functional, or combination. Self-explanatory pretty much here, right? Chronological, it's organized by the date of your job, right? Starting from the most recent job all the way back to the past, okay? Not the first job you've ever had, actually. I only want you to go back about 15 years. if you have lots of job experience. No hard and fast rule, by the way. Again, like this is really tailored to you, but this is a general framework. Functional, I actually like functional a lot. It's organized by type of skills or experiences. I'm going to show you an example in a second. So this would be for somebody who maybe has done a lot of different things, actually. And all those different things are, strengths that they can bring to the company. I'll show you this. I'm like going to get ahead of myself because I'm so excited about that one. It was very freeing for me to realize I did not have to do this by date. This is also good for people who maybe have gaps in their resume. Combination, it is perhaps I would do functional in terms of like, here are the skills, like you have been administrative support. Maybe you've done creative direction, okay? But within those skills, right, you might want to put the jobs that you've had by chronological order based on those skills that you used. Sounds complicated? Not really. You don't have to do it that way. Really, you can stick to chronological or functional. General components here, again, really straightforward. Something I want to point out here is contact information. Things have really changed. You do not need to put your entire address. That was back in the day when people were mailing stuff. So you don't need to do that. Now that jobs are largely remote, I would still put the general area you're from. You don't need to like say I'm from Queens, New York. If you don't want to, it could just be New York. The reason I might do that is just because if you are trying to get past an applicant tracking system, right, which is basically how usually big companies, filter through resumes largely based on the keywords that are in the job description, they may be looking for the city, especially if it's a job that does require you to be in the city. If you don't live there, you could say relocating using the wherever it's from. Okay, not a hard and fast rule, but again, if this is a large company, you might want to put the city. Okay. Summary and overview of who you are and your qualifications. I'm going to show you an example in just a minute. Of course, work experience, education and certificates, anything extra that could be an asset. And I put some examples here: awards, technical skills, volunteer work. Here's an example of, and by the way, I think this one came from the Muse. If you don't know that site, really good content. The Muse, Balance Careers, and Career Contessa are three of my favorite career publications. So this is an example of chronological. Okay. He put his address, you don't need to. And we can talk about this during application strategies for that boot camp or for that module. You might want to create a new email address that is specific to applying for jobs. So here he did james.applicant. And that would be a way for you just to keep track, right? So that things aren't getting lost. Totally up to you. So something you can see right here is, yes, it's chronological, but also he has right underneath it the title of his job, kind of a one sentence that really is the overview of what he did. And then he's getting more specific. I would say 2 to 3 bullet points. Again, not a hard and fast rule. Just, you be specific, but you don't need to go into like so much detail that my eyes hurt. Okay. Something else you might notice here, a lot of numbers. So something I want you to be thinking about is, and we can do this in the next steps that I give you at the end, who can you talk to at either your current job or your last job who might be able to give you more insight into your impact? Impact, yes, on your team, but largely the bottom line. Right? Where do you fit into the ecosystem of how the company makes money? That is massive. And sometimes we don't know those things, or we're not sure. So really do think about who you can get feedback from that does know you well or does know your company well. This is an example of a functional resume here, okay? You can see at the top, right? She put her LinkedIn, she put a number. Again, there's not one right way to do this. So in functional, right, areas of expertise, she had reception and customer service. She has administrative support. This is longer than what I just showed you here. This is obviously a screenshot. And then she separately had work experience with those chronological. That's, again, if you want to combine them, you can. Okay. This is why I wanted today, if you have a potential job that you might want to apply to, at the end, we're going to have the exercise. We're going to start working, through our resumes. It really does start with the job description. So does that mean you need to tailor each resume to each job? Yes. Okay. Now, you may end up applying to jobs that all kind of have the same job description, possibly. Then at least you have a base that you can use. But really, it's about the keywords in the job description. And more specifically, it's skills, abilities, credentials, qualities that a hiring manager looks for in a candidate. That's something when we give each other feedback, I want it to be based on here's the job description that I was working back from, so that when I give feedback, I can look at both of those things. Did this person create a resume that reflects the job description? Being as specific as possible, kind of mentioned all this before, right? Understanding the impact, that means quantifying it, numbers. Doesn't need to be exact, by the way, approximately 20%. Not saying we bullshit this, lie, or anything like that, but does it need to be like to a T exactly what the numbers were? I'll let you figure that out. Action, verb, short sentences. Don't go back more than 15 years. This is, again, not one right or wrong way to do it here. This is just general rule of thumb. So just pick out the ones that are like really most important. The reason I wouldn't go back too much longer than 15 years is both you're probably writing too much and this needs to fit into one page, and or fear of ageism. Quite frankly, same thing with, your education. You don't have to put your graduation date unless you graduated recently. You don't have to put your GPA unless it's going to be helpful to getting the job, or maybe you had a 4.0, but I didn't. And I didn't put that in my resume, okay? Buzzwords and cliche phrases. I'll show you that in just a slide of some of those words. Okay, so I did my best to block it out. This is one of my friends who is applying for jobs. And in the next module, she did a brilliant, which will be about how do you leverage your current network? How do you activate your current network to find opportunities? I'm going to give you the example of how she did it, which was fantastic. This is a template which you could use. I love canva.com. But again, there's no right or wrong way. B, don't have it be overly designed. That's the only thing I have to say about that, because A, it could be distracting, and B, it might have trouble getting through that applicant tracking system. But here she did do it by chronological order. She decided that. She has a lot of education, right? She has a master's degree. So, she kind of highlighted that there. You don't have to. Oftentimes your education's at the end. Something that was interesting she did with the expertise. Again, there's not one right way to do it. So she ended up using the words in the job description and the words used in the company. And she kind of just threw the words in there, right? She didn't make complete sentences. Product and strategy development, workshop facilitation and presentations with executives, dynamic team leader and futurism, right? That was all specific to the kind of work she does. You could do it that way. I probably would make complete sentences. So that'll be some feedback I give to her. She also put at the top her title, and underneath it, I have to ask, this seems very, very specific to the kind of work she does as a consultant. So I wouldn't necessarily follow what she did here. You also don't have to put your title up at the top, especially if the title that you currently have doesn't really quite match what you're applying to. But again, here are some examples that can give you a sense. I'm also going to send you the link to this if you're having a little trouble reading it. Once we get into, I'll keep going through the presentation because there is a lot to cover, but once we are done with this and we're going to the breakout, I'll drop the links, so no worries there. Straightforward formatting, right? You got this. Just, again, one page. If you have a ton of experience and you're really doing a lot of technical stuff and it needs to be more than a page and a half. I mean, really get feedback on that, because again, this is an industry agnostic conversation right now. So everything I'm saying, filter it through perhaps other jobs, peers of yours, or people who work at either the company you're applying to or a similar company with a similar role who got the job. I'd love to see their resume. Okay, so part of it is, yes, working backwards from the actual job description, but if you can, work backwards from the resume of somebody who got the job, if you can. Same thing with their cover letter, same thing with LinkedIn. Anybody who does something similar to you, go and find their materials if you can. Bullet points, put things in bold, PDF with your name and the role you're applying for. unless they're giving you different kinds of instructions, of course, and follow their instructions. And if you're going to be sending an email here, just make it short, say what the title is that you are applying for. And if you do have a mutual connection, you're going to want to put that in the subject line as well, but we'll go over that in the next module when it comes to the actual applying. Here are examples of buzzwords and cliche phrases. Some of these are hard to get around. I've certainly used them before, right? Like strategic. If you can Google synonyms for this stuff, I would urge you to do that and use those words instead. If anything, the only thing I would really avoid here is I think outside the box. Okay, that's the only one that's like, I rule, we get it, This is just a way for you to, when I said before in the beginning, like get past the robots and be human. Did I say that? No, use numbers and be human. The numbers are the impact, and the human is avoiding those kind of cliche general statements. Feel free to jump in with questions in the chat if you'd like. I'm sure you have them. I am still going to just go through everything because I really want to give us enough time to look at our own resumes, but I will answer all questions once I get to the end of this presentation. So I'm not ignoring you, okay? Put it in the chat when it comes to resume. Let's talk about a compelling cover letter. So this is not a regurgitation of your resume, to be clear, okay? This is the opportunity to tell the story behind the resume, and the emphasis on story here. So it's giving a little bit of what I call color commentary, to why you did certain things, how you did it. It's a way to give it a sense of kind of your career arc as well. How one skill set or experience set you up for the next skill set and experience, right? So it's demonstrating how did you grow as a candidate. Now, of course, the interview is really the place to get into more of like your career arc, and how you're ready for this job and how it makes sense for the direction you're going in. But this is you sort of practicing for your interview, right? Again, it's the story behind the resume. Something I cannot stress enough. And I feel like this was a mistake that a lot of people made at the beginning of their careers back in the day. I think kids coming out of college now are more savvy, sorry to say, for those of us who are older. It's not about what the company can do for you. I feel like I've seen that a lot on resumes, at least in the past, right? Here's what I'm looking for in a company. We don't care, or I care because I love you, but they don't care. This is about what you can do for them, all right? Salutation, opening, body, closing. I don't need to read you my entire slide here. I will give you an example in a minute. I think examples really illustrate better than what I could tell you here. But opening statement is really kind of the one sentence that they need to hear. It's how you'd be a great fit. And maybe not just, I know I'd be a great fit. I mean, that could be maybe the first sentence, but the next sentence, you do need to get into specifics. And that's the whole point, I think, in all of this. And you hear me say it over and over again. If you speak too broadly, you're just not going to stand out. And it's generic, right? So let's get into those specifics. And that's going to take you some time, which is great. It's an opportunity to understand yourself better once we dig into your past wins. So I kind of said this when I got into this section right here in terms of the fact this is not a regurgitation of your resume. It's showing the thought process or approach behind one of your responsibilities, because as the hiring manager, it's not just hiring you to execute on the function of the job. It's also hiring you to be part of a team dynamic and part of a company culture. So speaking to that as well, and again, integrating words from the job description, but also integrating as best you can what you find out about the company, right? The language that they use on their website, for example, like look into that. If you have a testimonial, this is a great place to use it. So that's something I'm going to challenge you to do as well. Not only think about who at your past company or your current company who can give you insight on the impact that you've had on the bottom line, but maybe somebody who can also speak to your abilities, your skills, who you are. And again, not bullshitty. Like if they can give an example, that would be excellent. This could be a boss, a colleague, a client. By the way, when I share the link to, I was about to say her name, but I can't use her name. The woman whose resume that I shared, she actually has a 2-page resume, and the second page has a list of testimonials. She did that because she is not applying through cold applying. So there's no concern about the applicant tracking system for her. And that's, again, the only reason why maybe you don't want to go past a one pager. For her, the testimonials, that was a way to differentiate herself. And like I said, she wasn't applying cold. So feel free to think about that as a potential. Certainly talk about it in your interview. I also encourage everybody to create a personal website. I don't go into that here. If you have questions about that, I can talk about it at the end. But just even going to like squarespace.com, there's beautiful templates, very easy to use. All you need to have on it is like who you are, your mission statement, what you're looking for. And if you have a couple of examples of the work that you've done, great. That's also where you can put those testimonials. Okay. And then the closing. This is the differentiator. If you can speak to their mission or their culture, I mean, it does need to be genuine. I'll give you an example in a minute of what that looks like for one of my friends whose cover letter I basically wrote that I edited. And then, just a summary of what you'd bring, and then be specific with what comes next, right? Request a meeting or a call. Easy. Okay, so here is, not sure if you can see it, might be small on your screen. I will share this with you afterwards in just a minute, but she started by, it's hard to see. So she, oh man, okay. So she started by who she is, what her current job title is, comma, and why that sets her up well for the role she's applying for here. Okay, so again, the role she currently has and the role she's applying for. First sentence. Let me just read this very quickly. So, as the fourth member of, okay, I won't say who the company is, I helped craft our brand voice specifically through video content creation. Okay, so this is overview of what she does. Then she gets more specific here. I directed, edited, and produced all videos for the company from 2016 to 2021, about 600 videos in total. Starts getting into the numbers, right? I directed and produced over 100 large-scale video and photo shoots during that time as well. This work involved hiring large crews, directing the video and photo shoots, and managing every aspect pre through post-production. Okay, all of this, she worked backwards from the job description. And she was giving really showing the scope of what she does, the scale of what she does. So it's not just, I'm this senior creative video producer, but like what goes into that? And she was also using, things like large scale video shoots, not just video shoots. Okay. And then she moves on into the next paragraph. She was applying for a job at Nike and talks about her years of experience. I really urge her here to use words like KPI driven briefs into emotionally impact videos. That goes back to like the numbers, use numbers and be human. Then she gives an example, again, specific. Then I really wanted her to highlight her scrappiness because I knew that that's what was going to make her unique. That's something I want you all, as you're looking at your wins. And this was in the first session, right? Looking at patterns of throughout your life, your strengths, right? What comes naturally to you. That you want to have done that work going into job applications, because that is what's going to help the hirer understand not just what you can do, but really who you are, what makes you unique. And so for her, and I've known her for a very long time, it's her scrappiness, it's her resourcefulness. So yes, Nike's a big company and she needs to, show that she's ready for that, which she did in talking about the number, 100 large scale video and photo shoots. She's clearly capable, but a lot of people applying to a huge company, they may feel like, well, I need to have worked at a huge company beforehand to be a good fit. Maybe, but what really is going to make her stand out is that she brings resourcefulness and scrappiness that comes from working at a startup. So she gives an example of that. In the midst of a total lockdown with no budget, I pivoted from a polished production status quo to a more DIY direction of news style found footage. She goes on and on here. Okay, she hyperlinked to the cover letter. Why not? Then she goes into specifics, right into those numbers. Something I worked on here with her was more of the telling story aspect, right? I mean, you could begin just for yourself, bullet pointing out a bunch of stuff, but how do we demonstrate, what's telling a story? It's being compelling. It's kind of a beginning, middle, and end. It's showing why do we care? So that's where we said in the midst of a total lockdown with no budget. So I'd really have you think about what's at stake. when you talk about your wins. There is always something at stake. Okay. I'm not going to read, you can read this on your own. But again, it was all very much crafted from the job description. Here's the last part that speaks to the company culture. And again, this needs to be, needs to be genuine. I'm a proud lesbian feminist with women's empowerment and betterment sitting at the very cornerstone that got cut off of my life's work. I've realized by now that there's too much at stake to dedicate my work week and my creative brain power to anything else besides achieving gender equality in my lifetime. I actually probably wouldn't have said it that way. Where she says, that this, like, I will not dedicate it to anything else. Well, hold on, we got to be a little bit more, be more adaptable there. So the reason I'm sharing this with you though, is she started in a much more generic way. It was much more, it just wasn't compelling. It didn't tell a story. It wasn't specific enough. Okay. She got the job interview through this cover letter, and it ended up being between her and one other person, and she didn't get the job, but this is a huge success because she is now on their radar. We can talk about this in the next module. We can talk about during the interview, the interview module. You never know what openings are going to come out afterwards. And you never know where that recruiter is going to go. I've stayed in touch with people who've interviewed me and I didn't get those jobs, and they become sort of mentors. So there you go. Let's talk about optimizing a LinkedIn profile. Please, again, throw in questions as you have them. Once I'm done with this presentation, I'll provide you links with that first resume that I talked about, and then this cover letter so you can dig into it a little bit more. But let's talk about optimizing your LinkedIn profile. Well, I misspelled that word. So that is one thing you want to make sure does not happen, is you have a proofreader on everything. 800 million members on LinkedIn. Isn't that wild? Surprisingly, I've had a number of people ask me, should I have a LinkedIn profile? Yes. Yes, you absolutely should. It's your home on the internet. Think about when people Google you. What do you want them to find? That's also one reason I would suggest everybody maybe look into having a personal website. Again, it could just be one page, a homepage, because again, when people Google you, you want to be in command of what they find. Yes, we should have LinkedIn. Yes, this will take you time to do, and LinkedIn changes, and you change, you have updates. So honestly, this is a good kick in the butt for myself to update my own LinkedIn, okay? I would start by getting a customized URL. I'll send you guys how do you do this. What I mean by customized URL is that it's linkedin.com/your name. How to use your name. Because again, you can put that, think about that on the top of your resume. Clean. The background, so I'll go over the components really quickly and then show you some examples. There's the background or banner photo at the top. It's gray, I think, as a default. You can absolutely keep that, but every piece of your LinkedIn is an opportunity to show who you are. So if there is anything that does show who you are, if it's you in action. So for me, I'll show you what mine looks like. For me, it has my book as my banner, and then my photo is me with a microphone. For you, totally, I mean, it might be completely different. You might find, and I'll give you an example in a minute, maybe it's a cause that you want to draw attention to. Maybe it is a stock image based on the category of work that you do. That's up to you. It could also just be a pretty image or nothing. Your headshot's very, very important. You need to be the only one in your headshot. It does not need to be a professional headshot at all, because our iPhone, if you have an iPhone, pretty good quality, really good quality. But you want to take up about 60% of the frame. You also want to smile. There's research that shows that it will increase the number of people who reach out to you, people who think of you favorably. So do your best. Do your best. Okay, if you can't smile in your picture, because that's not the one you have. That's a good picture, but consider it. Headline. In the next slide, I'm going to break down some of the most important ones here. So I'll talk about headline, your about, and then your experience in just a minute. But let me talk about location for a second. I would do your metropolitan area. I think I kind of said this before, or maybe before I started to record, I can't remember. So instead of saying your neighborhood, maybe say Los Angeles. That's going to increase the net of recruiters that may be looking, filtering through. Providing services is new. I think that's more for freelancers or business owners. So probably something I should put on my profile. I haven't done it. So things like, resume editing or, leadership training. But I'll show you that in a minute. Your about it used to be called summary. You may remember it as summary because I think this is pretty recent that they changed it. It's a brief career autobiography. Featured an activity. That's something you do not need to have at all. You might if you're trying to activate networking through LinkedIn. So that's totally up to you. But featured, basically, content you're most proud of. So it could be links out to social media or blog posts that you've written, right? That's different from activity because activity is, if you've commented or posted anything on somebody else's LinkedIn, that's going to show up there. Again, I urge you, find the profiles of people who do similar things to you and see how they're doing it if they're utilizing that. Of course, your work experience, education, licenses and certifications, skills and endorsements. We oftentimes skip over that, but there's research that says at least 5 skills, you're going to get up to 17 times more profile views. Why not? Right? Why not do it? And then recommendations. You can only request recommendations from people who are your first degree connections. Okay. Or they don't have, go email them. You could reach out by LinkedIn, but hopefully this is somebody you actually know. But you have to have a first degree connection in order for them to write that recommendation. And then honors and awards. Okay. There we go. All right, let's dig into the components here. This is a big suggestion I have. So headline, you might immediately think it has to be your title. No, because titles are different at different companies. I once had a title that was Master of Ceremonies. What does that mean? It's amazing on a business card because it really is a conversation starter. But how many other companies have Master of Ceremonies as their title? Also, if the whole point of this is to be found by recruiters who are going to be filtering by keywords, they're not looking for Master of Ceremonies. So instead, I would really craft this based on what you do. So, and this, think back to the resume, the functional resume. Maybe you do, right? Office manager, again, creative director. And by the way, they don't need to be correlated to any kind of job title. It's really what do you do? And you can have a little bit of fun with this. If you want to mention why you do something, right? Because that's going to show the human part of you. And you can be fun here. So I help people find their dream jobs through recruitment and career coaching. Oh, I also love cats a lot. There, again, there's no right or wrong way to do this. You just want to optimize. About, right? Previously called summary. There's above the fold, meaning they're going to have to click see more in order to see more. So that means your first sentence, you want it to be really good. And it could be just fleshing out the headline a little bit more. I'll show you an example in a minute. This is how I would really the framework, I think, for the about, sort of what you do, why you do it, successes that you've had, what you're looking for. So you can say, I am open to opportunities. And then, here's my personal website, here's my social media, right? The how to get in touch. You always want to think about how to integrate bullet points into this, right? How to break up paragraphs. This is kind of a brief autobiography, almost like your cover letter in a sense. Whereas work experience, that's more like your resume. Same suggestions here as it was for the resume. I would use present tense. Actually, you'll notice a lot of people use the past. I would use present. That speaks to the action verbs. Third person, bit douchey, I think, right? She's a great candidate. The only time that I use third person is in my biography, right? So if I'm speaking on a panel, that's the biography part, okay? And you could do that on a personal website, but not on a resume, not on LinkedIn, not on a cover letter. So here's an example of the background that draws attention to a cause, which for her, not only is she passionate about it, it's reflected in the kind of work that she does, right? So she leads women at LinkedIn. So something that I'd love you to notice here when it comes to her headline, this is what she does. Not even her, you don't even know what her title is, and that's fine. Again, she works at LinkedIn, so she clearly knows how to do this. Building strategies, systems, and teams to develop and deliver best-in-class content. And then this is more about who she is, leading women at LinkedIn globally to empower women to reach their full potential. Now, she put her city, Santa Barbara, California. My suggestion, again, is to make it more general, but she's not looking for work now. Luba did it a little bit differently here. So she decided not to, write as much as Vita. I would write a lot. This is your time. There's never too much on LinkedIn unless you are not breaking it up in a legible way. There's also character limits too. Here she says, I think that is her title. So sales performance consultant. And then she has something she does on the side. It runs an organization called United Women in Business Foundation. So I like that. If there is anything that you're doing on the side, put that. Could be volunteer work. Again, this is the human part. There's me. So I told you about why, I'm trying to sell myself here. I'm thinking about positioning myself for opportunities like speaking. Okay. And I made mine more of a mission, right? Because the kind of work I do is very mission driven. I'm an educator, author, entrepreneur, podcaster, and community builder. My mission is to close the gender wage and leadership gap by helping women realize their professional and financial power. Do you know how long that took me to write? It took me probably 4 years to write because I kept updating it, focusing it, getting feedback on it. And part of this was working with a friend of mine who is a public person who gave me a ton of feedback on my LinkedIn and my social media, specifically my Instagram, because she gets a lot of speaking and brand deals. So to my point of you should not be building this within a silo. And yes, getting feedback from everybody in the group here, fantastic, must have, but also getting feedback from somebody in your field, right? Positioning yourself for the jobs that you want. And here I said Los Angeles metropolitan area. I mentioned the featured section and the activity section. This came from Lucy Samuels, who's one of our instructors who led a workshop on optimizing your resume and your LinkedIn. So for her, and this honestly is something I should be doing, and I'm embarrassed that I haven't, because she is a consultant, she works for herself and is establishing herself as a thought leader. She's really getting active with writing blog posts and commenting on other people's stuff. I encourage everybody to do that, but it's a must-have for people who work for themselves and or want to be seen as a thought leader. So yes, working backwards from the job description, but this is also something we want to work backwards from. Viewing your search appearances. Has anybody dug into this before? Jump in the chat. And again, you're going to get this presentation. I know there's a number of instructions here, but optimizing your LinkedIn means you need to understand who is looking at it and what are they looking for. And do you reflect that? So there's a me icon at the top of your LinkedIn homepage. And by the way, this is also where you'll go to customize your URL. It's free to do that. I'm going to select view profile, click search appearances. So what you were looking for here is something that's called personal dashboard, and it's going to have statistics on who is looking at your profile, where do they work, and what kind of words were they looking for. And you want to make sure, again, that you have the keywords reflected in the job description and in the company's description. So if you're seeing them, looking for words that doesn't reflect what it is, if you're like, these aren't the companies that I want to work at, these aren't really the keywords of what I want to do, this is a time to gut check yourself. This is also something you can do to let recruiters know that you're open. Notice here, the default is off. So if you are open to finding new opportunities, you can click on. Your current employer will not see this, although LinkedIn says we can't guarantee that. That's just like to cover their butt, but they're not going to see this. Hold on. Okay, there's also a salary insight here. One thing I do want to mention, and I thought I included it as an example, but I didn't. When you let recruiters know that you're open, there's going to be a drop down that has filters. So you can specifically say you're looking for remote work, full-time freelance. There's a lot of keywords based on the kind of work that you're looking for. There's also a place that you're going to want to write a short paragraph, a note. So if a recruiter does look for you, the note is ready to go. Let me just look. I took a note for myself to tell you what you could put in it. So just give me 1 second. Okay. So, okay, here's in the first sentence, and I'll drop this in the chat in a second. Okay. So the short note to recruiters in the first sentence, introduce yourself. In the second sentence, state your preferred job title and years of experience. In the third sentence, explain what you do. And in the last sentence, state that you're only interested in remote work, for example. I just put that into and don't worry, you're all getting this. There's also a hashtag open to work feature now that will let recruiters know that you're open to new opportunities. You can do that, but you don't have to if you've already toggled, okay? In the next module about application strategies, I'm going to go into how do you use LinkedIn to find work. So that's not what we're covering now, but LinkedIn, I mean, it is your professional home on the internet. So really, we really want to use this as best as we can. Okay, let's, okay, this is our breakout. Good. So I wanted to give us 30 minutes to do this. And part of that could be sharing as well. So don't think you need to just like walk away from the computer. But I do want to have a solid reflection because I would like to give feedback to at least one person as the kind of case study of how we should be approaching this. So let me go ahead and minimize this screen before we jump in to do this resume exercise. And I can go back to the slides that were more specific to this part of the presentation. But let me look at these questions that people have asked here. So give me 1 minute. Good, lots of questions. Okay. Wow. Okay, good. People repeated the sources. Numbers equals impact is pretty hard to quantify if you're in an admin support role. Yes and no. I would be curious, Diana, if you want to put more information on why you think that is. Because the work that you do, and correct me if I'm wrong, supports other people. Well, those other people have an impact. How about that? Right? So understanding the impact that they've had, the kind of work, right, that they do, you facilitate that. You actually have an incredibly important role because without you, they cannot get that stuff done. Let me give you a quick example of something else. I taught at Vice and I talked about, this was about negotiating a raise, and I was talking about impact. And one of the women raised her hand. She says, I'm on the video team. How do I demonstrate impact beyond just the number of views that my video got? Right? Because that's where she first thought, and that she's right. Well, I asked her, how does this company make money? Because that's actually where, when we think about impact, that's where we all should be working backwards from, really understanding how the company makes money, all the ways that the company makes money. Okay, well, the company, Vice, largely makes money from ads, and brand sponsorships. So then I said to her, well, who works in sales? Who works in business development, right? Who pitches? Who gets those brands? How do they get them? Are they using video? Yes. They were using video. And she was very lucky. There was a woman in the room who was like, hey, I'm part of the team, the sales team. And she talked to her about the kind of pitch that she does. And I don't remember if this woman's video specifically was used to get a brand. If you can figure that out, that's fantastic. But I mentioned this in the beginning where if it's not like exact, it's okay as long as you're not, lying. Instead, so what she said was, the work that I do has contributed to X amount of dollars, in sales from brands, right? Or, the work that I do has been used in pitches that have generated X amount of dollars or help, you see where I'm going with this, right? Okay. 2 to 3 bullets for each job only. No hard and fast rule here, guys. I would start really big. I mean, that's the best way to begin on all of this, is to just write an enormous life story, and we're going to just cut it, edit it down. Do not edit yourself to begin with. Okay. It's just looking at the job description, looking at the keywords, writing an entire life story, making sure those words are integrated. Then we can start cutting it down. Most people do 2 to 3 bullets, but as long as it fits and your font is no less than 12. Okay, good. I love that Catherine's saying it may be helpful to think about impact in terms of meeting deadlines, improvement to process efficiency or scope. Yes, if you have saved time, saved resources, mentored somebody, contributed to the company culture, because the company culture dictates how long people stay at the company, if they can leverage it to attract great talent. If your team, if the people on your team have, you found that you being a cheerleader has, or your positivity, has increased productivity, say that. There you go. How can I research keywords that a recruiter might look for? I mean, it is the words in your job description. I think I mentioned it before, right? Skills, credentials. I don't remember everything. But by the way, you all may have asked these questions before I then ultimately addressed it. So, and let me know if I haven't. Okay, good responses people are having. Okay, it's tough. Great. I love that you're answering each other's questions. April asked 1-inch margins, 1 inch on all sides or 0.5. I actually don't, it's been 1,000 years since I have written a resume. I would Google that. I'm sorry that I would say I'm an expert in this entire process, but I am not like the end all be all expert specifically on resumes or LinkedIn profiles. So this is a suggestion. You want to definitely Google that. Yeah. One person, April said that seems like a lot of wasted space. And Diane said white space is more important than you think. 1,000%. Diane, that is correct, because this needs to be legible, but still Google it. Okay. As a designer, we're often pressured to have a more creative resume that displays our design skills. How do you find a balance between showing design skills and making an ATS-friendly resume? Yeah, that's why I wanted to kind of start by saying creatives, we're dealing with a little bit of a different set of challenges here. I don't know. Are these companies really looking for you to be creative in your resume? I mean, I think they're looking for the information in a legible way, in a straightforward way. And if there's creative work that you do, that to me should be in a personal website and a reel, a portfolio. And a resume is really the overview of the information as opposed to an opportunity to display your creativity. Okay. For the testimonial, do you include their name? You could if you want. You don't have to. If you could say their job function, that would be great. You obviously want to get their permission. I highly doubt that the person you're applying to is going to contact them. I mean, they will ask probably for references. Does your reference need to be the person who gave you the testimonial? No, if you don't want. But this needs to be a value add to how you present yourself. So it's either providing, again, a little bit more color to an example. So if it's like, she's just great, like a little too generic, maybe detail oriented with an example, if that is a keyword, something that is very important to your job function. Are there any scripts for how to include a testimonial? Would love to see how it should flow. I'm curious, does that mean when you ask somebody to give a testimonial, or how do you show your testimonial? I'm assuming that's the latter. It would just be, I can show you my friends, so hard not to use her name, to show you my friends, should you give permission, I'll show you her resume. Actually, let me go ahead and drop that in the chat because I promised to do that. Here is the resume example. She had 2 pages. One page being the testimonials. Again, you don't need to do that. Honestly, the testimonials to me seem to be better, I think, in a resume, in a cover letter or on a personal website. Not in a resume, even though she did. Okay. Let me go back to, okay. Dora, mine is going to be pleasehireme.com. Yeah, I'm seeing feeling convicted to have, I want to have a personal website now. Again, very easy to do. I think Squarespace has templates that might even just be a 1-page, and they have, you can look for different kinds of templates. And there's, I believe, ones that are specific to job applications, through resumes. So we can talk about that later on for sure. Yeah, good. I'm seeing some fun stuff in the chat. How can we appear open to work? Yes, without letting our current employer know we're searching. Hopefully I answered that question already. There we go. Yep, and you've all are answering each other. That's fabulous. Mary, is there any benefit to keeping it short? I think you're talking about LinkedIn, maybe? Hold on. So if someone hovers over your profile, they can see completely what you do, or does the length truly not matter? Listen, I mean, people are going to see the first line underneath, your headline, right? That's where I want you to give a little bit more description than just your job title, because they're only seeing a snippet. And master of ceremonies, what does that mean, right? To use my example, they're only going to see one sentence in the about before clicking see more. So it's just being very, really putting a lot of thought into what those things say. But in terms of everything else, use the max character limit in LinkedIn. Why not? Just make it legible. Short paragraphs, bullet points when you can, put things in bold when you can. Good. Is it risky to mark yourself as open to work? Does it get back to your current team? Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't, if we're talking about the open to work toggle, when you go into the dashboard, again, LinkedIn says that your current company won't see it, though they quote, can't guarantee it. So I'd say go for it. In terms of having this recent thing that LinkedIn did, I believe it's that it's a badge over your headshot that says that you're open to work. I think you're all smart here. If you don't want your current company to know that, I wouldn't change. I wouldn't put the badge. What about relevant skills section on your resume? Do you all utilize? If so, curious how many? I don't know about how many. I'd have to look into that a little bit more. I think Reese had a relatively good example. Don't start with that. Like really start with the work that you've done and the impact that you've had, and then see how much room that you have after that. And if you've already used keywords within your resume, then you don't need to repeat that in skills. But again, if you have the room to do it, do it. Just don't start there. Okay, good. A lot of responses that people are giving each other, which is great. Fabulous. Yeah, so Darlene said she was responding to Liz. I've gotten negative feedback over, quote, standard resumes. It's been such a confusing journey. I'm so interested. What does standard mean? Tell me more about that. And again, getting feedback from people who are within your industry, whoever's been in a position where they've hired somebody. But yeah, like I said, there's no hard and fast rule about any of this other than it needs to be legible. Okay. Yes. Great. Okay. Well, I've reached the end of the chat. Again, for those of you who are watching after the fact, I am going to go ahead and pause the recording right here while we all take a moment to review, to review our own resumes and to make sure that we are starting to, just to see where we can do better. But once we're done with that breakout, I'm going to start this video again. And if somebody, or a few folks are willing to share kind of their before and after and any questions they have, I can, everything I've told you, I think has been helpful. I hope it's been helpful, but of course it's an overview. Once we actually start digging into our individual resumes, our individual materials, it will begin to come to life and, make more sense. And by the way, LinkedIn, please complete your profile. Really, every single thing you can possibly do. I mean, featured activity, providing services, try, and I think it's okay if you don't necessarily get that, because that's really, again, more for freelancers and thought leaders. But if you have a complete profile, I mean, research shows that you're going to get 40 times more opportunities than those who don't. So again, I really urge you to look into that. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead, stop the recording, or pause the recording, and give me 1 second. Okay, recording in progress. So let me answer any and all questions that you might have based on the exercise that we just did and what we went over. Right off the bat, let me respond to some questions that were in the chat. What I would love you to do when you do upload your materials, and by materials, it could be everything, which is a sample cover letter, resume, a link to your LinkedIn. Or if you decide, let's just focus on the resume for right now, Great. Upload the most current one. You don't want to be getting feedback on a first draft. For yourself, though, I do recommend keeping, seeing what your original job, your original resume or cover letter was, right? Because then you can chart the edits that you've made, and perhaps you decide, I don't want this edit. Let me see what I had in the beginning, or maybe what I had in the beginning is kind of the base that you then use to create all different, tailor all different kinds of versions. So, but upload the most recent one. Feedback, you can, the way that you upload it is you just press new post. So here is, let's see. I just dropped the link in the chat of where you're going to be uploading your material. And by uploading it, you just press new post. There's a pink button on the top right-hand side, and you can upload, images, attachments, hyperlinks to videos. Like it's everything you could need. And then, yes, very good point. It's my favorite thing to do one of my favorite things to do is to look back at old resumes. So cringe, but showcases growth. Oh, wow. That actually really reminds me of something. Thank you for mentioning this. If you are struggling a little bit to figure out what you've done in your past job, a really great place to start is actually to find the original job description when you were hired. Then write a new job description based on what you actually did. So if you were hiring somebody to replace you, when you look at this most updated version compared to the original version when you were hired, seeing the change, it's going to help you. That's where you can begin by looking into what wins do I really want to showcase? Okay. What other things can I tell you? For those of you who are applying for companies and for jobs that are very different from what you've ever done before, right? If you're really pivoting here, or you are a recent grad and you don't have a lot of experience, what I would love you to do in your cover letter in particular is to highlight how you were a fast learner. You're a fast learner, you're resourceful, you bring, as an outsider, you bring a unique perspective. Within your resume, you've got to show how on LinkedIn, you have to show how your skills are transferable. Usually it's strengths, right? Who you are. This is where you might want a lot of feedback, but just generally speaking, you're going to highlight what you learned, how fast you move. You're a fast learner, okay? What other questions can I answer for you now that we have 1 minute left? And I know this was a lot of information. We could have had a whole module just on the resume, but I wanted to cover, all of this goes together. What suggestions might you have for working 2 jobs simultaneously? On LinkedIn, you can put whatever dates, right? So you could have 2 things on there that have the same dates. That's okay. Why not? What channels do we post in? Let me hyperlink it again right there. Just put it into the chat. I will also send everybody an email after this because I know we're getting a lot of questions of logistical stuff. Same channel. So the channel here is Tell Your Story. That's where you're going to put anything that's related to telling your story. For accountability groups, the reason that I put people into groups, there's nothing forced about it. I just know that I think we've got 80 or so people now in the boot camp, it's easy to feel a little bit lost. So, and we're also industry agnostic, that it's hard to find somebody who who does something similar to you. So I would use these folks as your first line of feedback, asking for feedback, checking in. Some groups, we've done this before, some groups are going to be really tight, and they're going to organize their own Zoom link, on their own time to give each other feedback. And some folks are going to feel like, we're all busy. I think we can do our own thing. Maybe 2 people within the group want to connect. You're adults. I'll let you figure that out. Once somebody emailed me and said, I didn't like my group. That's, this is not camp. You're going to figure, it's like this, you're going to figure out what works for you. This is just some folks that you can connect with. And you don't have to give feedback to them specifically when they upload their materials to Circle. Watch out for them. I would love you to. I'd love you to check in with each other. But if you see, you have a certain expertise and somebody uploads their resume and they do something similar to you, awesome if you can give them feedback. So there you go. Good. Thank you for thanking me. Lots of takeaways. Yeah, it's a little bit rough, right? When we're not in person, I never know if this is working for you guys. So, and there is a lot. Don't feel overwhelmed though. Just start with your story. Start with looking back at your original job description when you first started at your company and write a new one based on what you did. STAR method, dig into it, be really compelling, write as much as you possibly can. Then look back at my presentation, which I'll upload, to the structure. And then you start fitting into the structure and integrating those keywords from the job that you're actually applying for, step by step. I think that's it, guys. We are on time. That is, we should all have something to say that we are proud of. And today I am proud of myself for keeping within time. So again, I would have loved to give you way more time to work on your stuff, but enjoy your Sunday. Maybe take the rest of your Sunday to do this, or take the rest of it to just feel really good that you showed up and that you are, making progress here by just being part of this. Somebody asked about creating a special space within Circle just for their accountability group. I'm not going to do that because then we would have, you can't privatize. It would end up being a lot of groups you'd have to go through. You can have group messages though, up to 50 people, which, clearly you don't need, where you have, it's just like a group message function. I'm not sure if you can upload things there, but if you did want to have a smaller place where you can just chat and not have to use email or not have to speak publicly, I'm going to just show you really quickly how to do that within, go to messages, which when you look on the upper right-hand side of Circle, you see your profile icon. Right next to it is a message icon. Okay, you're going to click on the message icon and you can just search for the person or for the people that you're looking for. And you can add people to your, I'm just going to send you a link to a tutorial I did, because you can add people to it. You can also just create the group, take the link, and then share the link. So really straightforward. And I would recommend that. That's probably the best way to connect with your group. Although of course, email, Zoom, whatever works best for you. Jillian asked, how do we know what group we're in? So Jillian, I actually have not put you yet in a group because I need you to fill out the survey. Jillian and I didn't send her some materials before, so I apologize for that. Once you fill out the survey, I'm going to end up putting you in a group. I believe Madison also is looking for one. Jody Ann, I think there's a handful of people who haven't filled out the survey. Do reach out to me. If you do not see yourself in the accountability group, there's something going on. So my email, claire@ladiesgetpaid.com. Okay, Jillian, I'll take a look. I don't want to put you in the same group as your sister. So I'll introduce you to your group later today. Okay. Well, thank you all as always for being here. I'm honored to be part of your journey. I hope this was helpful, or at least got you thinking about some stuff. And don't be overwhelmed, right? One foot in front of the other, and feedback is everything. So do your best, and then we're here. Let's get some jobs. I know I should have added salary negotiation as one of our modules next time. All right, guys, have a wonderful rest of your weekend, an awesome start to Monday. I'll send you an email later today with a recap of everything. And if you're watching this after the fact, I hope you have a wonderful whatever day of the week it is that you're watching. Bye, guys.